Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new Jetpack Retro. We're going to be doing another mini documentary today due to the fact that I was a really big fan of Days Gone. I thought it was a really good game. And when I went back to this company's history out of curiosity, and I found out that they actually worked on a lot of games that I've been a fan on, much more smaller titles though, and also on top of that, finding out that they were involved in one of the biggest game disasters ever, I thought it would be fun to get deep into the story of who Bend Studios is, how they came to be, and their entire story, plus their development behind Days Gone. So today we're going to be taking a look at the story of PlayStation's Bend Studio. And yes, due to the reason why I also made this is because I go by a schedule where I'll check, and if there already is a documentary on this team made, I will not do it. But I see there's a lot of lack of talk about them, and not many documentaries at all covering Bend Studios on YouTube. So here we go. This is the story of PlayStation's Bend Studio. Long ago, Mark Blank and Michael Berlin founded Bend Studio as Blank Berlin & Co. way back then in 1992, working and releasing several puzzle games for mostly the Apple Newton computer, such as titles like Dell Crossword Puzzles, until later in 1993, an old football game idea they kept bouncing around the studio and working on, and they really wanted to work on this idea. This was an idea they had in the works since the start of their company, and with the help from a new hire that they got from Apple named Russ Wedmore, they finally got Acolyte in 1994 to publish this game idea, now known as Action Football on the PC, starting a new working relationship with Accolade. Following Action Football's release, Blank and Berlin & Co. looked to expand further and work more on other titles. They decided to finally change their name to decded in April 1995, and under their new name, Accolade tapped them for their first big project, a launch title for the PS1, a launch title for the very first PlayStation, called Bubsy 3D. With a team of only 8 employees only, it was the studio's first ever console game, and their first time ever working on a 3D game as well, as 3D was still a new thing game companies were working on at the time. As trying to perform such a new idea with such different visuals and style behind it, the game was very difficult, causing such development stress and filling the game with bugs during development, but through sheer will, the game was finally able to get finished and released in 1996. But sadly, as you guys probably know, it's a really big talked about subject on YouTube in the gaming scene, Bubsy 3D was a massive hated flop. Due to it looking unfinished, unrendered, playing buggy, stiff, and, well, didn't help that it was also released at the same time as Crash Bandicoot. It bombed bad, and became a staple in gaming as one of the most hated titles. But luckily for them, another studio that was owned by Sony at the time, called 989 Studios, saw their game and actually saw potential in it. They really enjoyed the 2-player mode and the shooting mechanic you use with atoms, making it almost as if it was a scope. So, due to this, 989 Studios saw their game and asked Sony if they could work with them on a brand new PlayStation IP. This IP ended up being later known as Siphon Filter. According to the creative director of the game, John Gavin, who was actually hired in the middle of development of Siphon Filter, as it was being made, Sony had faith in Eidetic because it had experience with the PlayStation already. It had experience with PlayStation development, thanks to their work on Bubsy 3D, and already had an engine that the game could be built on top of. However, the development of Siphon Filter was far difficult than anyone could have thought, because Eidetic had no experience making a stealth action game before, so they hired 13 more staff to help development. But sadly, due to dissatisfaction with the game and the state of the video game industry as a whole, and due to the horrible reception Bubsy 3D got and the nature of Siphon Filter's development, Berlin left the company And if it wasn't bad enough, the game, due to missing deadlines and making changes to the game's structure, story, and mechanics, over and over, Siphon Filter was almost cancelled several times during development. But despite all the problems popping up left and right, 989 Studios producer, Connie Booth, had great faith in the project and pushed to keep it alive, making sure Siphon Filter got released thanks to her in 1999. And turns out she ended up being right. The game on release sold over 1 million units, making a new PlayStation original hit for Sony Entertainment. With this success, decded spent the next few years developing Siphon Filter titles, getting them fully bought by Sony Entertainment finally in the year 2000, where they decided to rename to Ben Studio, the people we know them as today. And throughout this time period, just kept working on Siphon Filter games full-time all the way till 2007, until they started to grow tired of the Siphon Filter series, and after finishing the last title for the PS2 and PSP, and seeing a few similarities between their game, Siphon Filter, and another studio's game, Resistance, that came out around the PS3 launch, they decided to hop to another PlayStation franchise and get to work on the next chapter of their studio. Ben Studios created a little demo for Resistance and showed it to PlayStation producers and the original Resistance developer Insomniac Games, and, to their surprise, got approval to begin development right away on what would later become Resistance Retribution for the PSP. The game got finished and released in 2009 to some pretty good sales and some pretty decent reviews, leading Ben Studios to dedicate 9 of their employees to an Uncharted game project for the PlayStation Vita Next. But sadly, several ideas for the project were outright rejected by Uncharted's developer, Naughty Dog. Until finally Ben Studios switched gears and decided to work very closely with Naughty Dog, and finally got permission to use all of their assets and designs from Uncharted 1 and 2, where they put them to work in a new demo that finally got Naughty Dog's approval. This new direction, reusing their old assets, finally gave Naughty Dog's faith in giving it the full approval, creating what would later be Uncharted Golden Abyss. A really, in my opinion, damn good game, and a damn good entry to the Uncharted series. Which, well, good thing I wasn't the one alone in that, it was also very well received. Ben Studio also got to work after the really good approval of Uncharted Golden Abyss and how well it did to fans, saying it was pretty impressive for the hardware, making a fully done Uncharted game just for portable. They were able to get to work on developing Uncharted Fight for Fortune, together with One Loop Games, causing a new era of Ben Studios, where they were stuck to developing, at the time, solely for Sony's portable consoles for a while, PSP and PS Vita, until finally getting the urge to create something new, a new IP if you will. And with the rise of the PS4 and its technology looking very ahead of the other consoles they worked on, they decided to be very ambitious with this brand new idea. After years since their first IP, Siphon Filter, hit 1999, they finally decided to work on a brand new IP for the PlayStation 4's release, but sadly it ended up being a very difficult process. To start with, this new game would be filled with a ton of delays due to it being Ben's first time developing on a brand new console, and a console in general from years of the PSP, and taking time to learn the new console and get used to it. And, well, choosing to make the game so large and ambitious also caused bugs galore, leading to massive glitches and minor crashes, giving this new game, Days Gone, a very rocky and delayed 2019 release. The game did alright and actually sold decently well, and the reviews are positive, but only 1 year later, in 2020, after the game wrapped up and released, creative director John Gavin, who had been with Ben since the Siphon Filter days, and the game's director, Jeff Ross, both left Ben Studios by December. However, Gavin claimed the company fired him for having a disruptive personality. leading to Gavin having a breakdown on Twitter, now called X, where he blamed woke reviewers and woke people for Days Gone's okay-only reception. Ben Studios has since then distanced himself from Gavin and does not like to talk about his Twitter post, leaving Ben Studios for a while in a rocky spot and trying to plan their next move, but very carefully, as this was a blow to them. After a while of just sitting in the back and solely crunching out updates for Days Gone, adding a great horde mode and new items and new things to do, and fixing up all the bugs where the game is much more playable now, Ben Studios had decided to pitch a sequel to Days Gone. They actually pitched an idea for Days Gone sequel twice. For twice in a row, Ben Studios pitched a follow-up to Days Gone, right to Sony Entertainment themselves, but have had them both turned down, with Sony simply just not interested at the moment for a continuation of the story of Days Gone, forcing Ben Studios to scramble and try to think of something else, until finally, recently, getting approval for a brand new IP for the PS5 that, in their words, will be an open-world multiplayer experience, the first of its kind for Ben Studios, which we can hope will be a smoother development than their last IP. The developer's community manager, Kevin McAllister, claimed last May that the studio's current project will also be its best yet, and in their own Twitter post wrote as well, "We be cookin'." And you know what? Who knows? Maybe it will be, but seeing Sony's recent flop, I'm very doubtful for this being an okay or outright experience. In my opinions, it might just outright be bad due to their recent luck. And that is the story of Ben Studios. Now, I wanted to do this documentary due to the fact that I first fell in love with the studio when I played Uncharted Golden Abyss on the PS Vita. If you know me, I'm a huge Uncharted fan. I love this series. This is my PlayStation favorite series of all time. And I went nuts to get a portable Uncharted game for my Vita, and when I played it, it was actually amazing. Downright, I say it's better than Uncharted 4 in a lot of ways. And I got interested in them after, and I kept tabs on them, and then they released Days Gone after, and yes, just because of how much I love their Uncharted game, I got Days Gone immediately when it came out, because I had faith in the studio at that point, and I love Days Gone. Yes, I won't lie, it was very buggy and very broken, and there's many problems, but I still loved it. The story is great, the gameplay is addictive, and I just love killing hordes upon hordes. Getting materials, planning out ways to take out the next horde is a very addictive formula. And I like this team. When I then later found out that they were the ones behind one of the most hated games in gaming, Bubsy 3D, I got interested, because that means these guys had a very good lesson. Even though they had a bad start, someone saw faith in them. Someone said, you know what, these guys got a shot. And Sony and 989 chose to give them that chance and let them prove how good they could truly be. Ben Studios is a story of even though you flopped and even though you had a rocky start, that doesn't mean you didn't deserve a chance. Even though they went through rocky starts, bad games, and horrible reviews, they still stuck in there and proved, years later, that they were a great force to be reckoned with in the gaming industry at PlayStation. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe, and tell all your friends about this documentary if you found it interesting. Also, let me know in the comments your thoughts on Ben Studios and anything else in gaming or film you would like me to do a documentary of next. And I'll see you guys for the next episode of Jetpack Retro next. Holidays are over, and I'm finally back. Bye, guys.